Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today I'm on North Haven Street in the Crescent neighborhood, industrial neighborhood of Baltimore, just north of Highlandtown, if you know where that is. And we're going to talk about the King, Cork, and Seal Company building behind me. This building is kind of like the cat that had 9 lives. Over its 117-year history, it has done things like make fireplace mantles, can pickles, make corrugated cardboard boxes, store hot dogs, and make bottle caps, as its name King, Cork, and Seal suggests. Let's start our story in 1891. That's when a woman named Jasmine Townsend becomes the owner of 14 acres in this part of Baltimore County. The city doesn't annex this until 1918. This is kind of unusual. It was not unprecedented for women to own property, but it was unusual. She was one of them. And she didn't live in Baltimore. She lived in Atlantic City, New Jersey. So kind of interesting there as well. For the first couple years, not much happens here. She doesn't do a whole lot. But by 1905, she begins leasing it to a company called the Steiner Mantle Company, Charles Steiner. And she apparently was eager to no longer take an active role in managing it because she gave Steiner a 99-year lease. He was happy about that. He was also happy about its location near the railroad tracks to bring in wood and take out his mantles, as well as near other wood products manufacturing companies, so they could kind of share resources there as well. He was not so happy to be here, however, in 1904. He had built a building on this property even before he got the written lease, but his neighbor, the Williams Veneer Company, caught fire and burned its 3.5 acres to the ground, almost burned his company, the Steiner Mantle Company building, but Steiner engaged a bucket brigade and kept the fire away. He learned a lesson from that, as well as the great 1904 fire downtown, and in the building he installed sprinklers. He built a huge water tower with its own hydrant, so he didn't have to rely on anybody else for water, and he employed a watchman in the evenings and on the weekends to basically spot for fire, so he was not going to take any chances. So who was Charles Steiner? Well, he was a mantle maker, but also very civically engaged. He had formed the Merchants and Manufacturers Association of Highlandtown. He was president of something called the East End Improvement Association, and he was on the school board. He was also ahead of his time marketing. Early on, he sent out a letter to all of his customers, telling them about all the great things they could buy from him, but also emblazoned on the envelope were the words, Greater Baltimore, Maryland. He was an early civic booster. It caught the attention of none other than the mayor at the time, Mayor E. Clay Timonus. The mayor then said, the world will be informed that the businessmen of this city are proud of Baltimore. So a really early booster, kind of neat there as well. But being a civic booster didn't mean you didn't have to do your business responsibilities. And so in 1910, he decided he needed some money. He sold stock in his company, and he sold the northern part of the property to a group called the King, Cork, and Seal Company. Interestingly, the property line between them ran through the middle of the building, so they shared responsibility for maintaining the building. We don't know a whole lot about King, Cork, and Seal. We know it was a company formed in West Virginia. Its president lived in Washington, D.C. And in 1908, it advertised that it was new in Baltimore on Saratoga Street, and then 1910 came up here. I suspect that it came here because of the skilled labor force in bottle cap making. That's what it did. In 1892, the Baltimore inventor William Painter invented the bottle cap and his Crown Cork and Seal Company, and I suspect that King Cork and Seal came to take advantage of the hundreds of trained engineers and mechanics who built and maintained the machines that were needed to make bottle caps. So King Cork and Seal keeps chugging away in the northern half, but Steiner eventually in 1919 has some trouble and eventually sells his part of the property. The first buyer was a gentleman named August Gassinger. Gassinger made wooden tables. He was an immigrant from Bavaria. That made sense, switching from wooden mantles to wooden tables. Hopefully there were some machines that he could take advantage of here. But Gassinger eventually decides he doesn't want to make tables anymore. He wants to sell other people's tables. So he closes up here and buys a storefront on Gay Street to do the sales part. He leases the property out at first to a box making company that we have talked about in a prior video, the Raffle Company. Raffle was a pioneer, especially in corrugated boxes, and they were here for 10 years. And then the building went through a series of other owners. It was home to a canning collective, a printing company, and then a company called Hellwig and Leitch, that they went under the Majestic label, selling things like pickles. And I think here they both made pickles and also mayonnaise and mustard as well. In 1952, a new owner comes in, and that's a company called Schluterberg and Curley. Schluterberg was a butcher that got its start in Baltimore before the Civil War, and Curley was a butcher who got his start in Baltimore after the Civil War. When they combined in 1920, they were the largest meat processors on the East Coast, and they came here. They had a slaughterhouse a block away to process the animals, and then had this place where they stored their packaged meats as they were waiting to go out to the world. You may not recognize the names Schluterberg and Curley, but I bet you'll know the name that they sold their meats under, SK. And so here in this building was a warehouse essentially for pounds and pounds of hot dogs and sausages and hams. So I'm going to wrap up for what's going on here today. The building has recently been wonderfully restored. It's on the Baltimore City's historic landmark list, and where once wooden manufacturers for mantles and tables, and then pickle canning, and then SK hot dogs were stored, now is what's called the Emerging Technology Center. And instead of those older uses, we've got uses like on-demand medical software, online gaming, and a group that is bringing museums and businesses together. Not too bad for a 117-year-old building that almost burned to the ground its very first year. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.